Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 Tournament Game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is the Year 2 recap video, so this is turns 13 through... This is probably going to be a long one. There's a lot of stuff that has happened in this year. A lot of interesting things going on. So yeah, this is, by the way, this is an image, right? This is a screenshot of the, what things looked like, what the world view looked like for us on turn 13. I love that there's this little, little thing going on over here in Vanarusian lands, Vanarusian territories, right? But yeah, we have a modest empire. We are enclosed by Ashdod to the north, Vanheim to the west, and Agartha to the south, with a Yis, who is in, I believe, a 1v1v1 at this point, to our east. We have not expanded especially well, but we also haven't expanded just horrendously, right? Not a lot of losses, not a lot of major losses anyways. No accidental or failed expansions. No horrendous bumps, nothing like that. So overall, okay, just not very quick, right? And not very profitable, basically. That is that situation. So let's actually jump into, let me flip over here to... This is turn 24, and it's a very different looking world. Oh, it's a very small world comparatively. So let's talk about things, right? Let's jump into the growth and economy section of this video. So first thing that we will start off with is our province count. How did we do? How did we fare, right, as we went through the last year? Obviously, hoping for growth and not getting it. So at turn 13, we started at 15 provinces. In turn 24, we are now at 4 provinces, which is pretty rough. So obviously, we've taken some pretty bad losses there. The battle against Hinnom, Ashdod, I always do that. The battle against Ashdod put us very far behind. The coalition that we had assumed was always about to trigger did actually trigger. We got hit from north, west, and south, and it absolutely took a toll on us. So reflecting that, from the province side of things drastically dipping, the income side of things. So income, turn 13 we had 867 gold as income. Turn 24 we have 186 gold as income. So that's a pretty steep decline as well. And then in tandem with that, right, like upkeep, turn 13 we had 175 gold upkeep, and actually in turn 24 we have 174 gold upkeep. So improvements, right? That's not typically what you want to see, right? So along with our province count just plummeting, our income has plummeted, our upkeep has mostly remained the same because we haven't lost that many units in comparison. A lot of the units that we did lose in the battle against Ashdod, we were able to replace in the immediate aftermath. And then a lot of the units that we did lose were units that had low or no upkeep, right? So Condors or Haten Runa were a large portion of what we lost, along with Condor Warriors, right? But we have since replaced the Condor Warriors with a fair amount of Sun Guard, so that kind of like balances out some of the, and some mages, so that kind of balances out the gold lost. Also, the concept, or the upkeep, the concept of losing an Inca and a Koya and gaining a Royal Malqui means we gain a lot of upkeep from that as well, right? So Anyways, again, still not really sure if this is useful information, but moving on, we have a current treasury of 10. I know sometimes people consider current treasuries to be decent information, but I think it's decent information from a turn-to-turn basis. I don't think it's really decent information from a year-to-year basis, unless, like, this is not a game where you're supposed to be storing up gold for a purpose, right? The concept with Dominions 5 is you kind of want to be spending your gold every single turn. There are 4Xs out there where, like, banking gold is an important thing, but this is not one of them. Sure, you do kind of want, like, you may want to bank gold from turn to turn to try to get something like infrastructure or a certain amount of recruits at a certain location or something weird like that. But yeah, anyways, I don't think current treasury is a very important thing, but it's pretty simple for us to report on, so we'll do it. Next up in the growth and economy, or last up in the growth economy section, is infrastructure, right? So infrastructure, we put up one lab over in Mighty Pillars, which is no longer our territory. So that was wasted gold, which is unfortunate, but kind of expected, right? So we built that lab on like turn 13, right? Or turn 14. It was basically before the wars had begun, before we knew that we were basically going to get thrashed, and that we had to move into a more defensive situation. So that is the growth and economy section. Obviously, it's pretty dire, I guess would be the route that I would go. Seeing your provinces dip that badly, seeing your income and upkeep and all of that type of stuff go in a direction that you don't want to go, i.e. upkeep not going down and income going down, right, is a big negative, right? That's what happens when you start to get knocked out of a game. So I think pretty indicative of the situation. Nothing incredibly surprising there. So let's move on to gem economy. So boom, gem economy, right? I'm trying to keep. I took really horrible notes the last time when I was doing a recap video, and it took me a long time to edit it. So I'm trying to take better notes this time around. So gem income. Gem income, I think, is much like growth and economy. I think it is a very good indicator of how good you are doing. In point of fact, depending on what nation you're playing and what era you're playing it in, and how, like, what stage the game is in, I think gem income is a far superior indication of how good you're doing compared to everything else. So let's just take a look at our gem income, or our gem economy, right, is what I was talking about. Gem income is what we're talking about now. So turn 13, I'm just going to read through these. Turn 13, we had Fire 1, Air 1, Earth 1, Astral 1, Death 3, and Nature 3. And turn 24, we have Fire 1, Air 1, Earth 1, Astral 1, Death 2. So, not great, again. And that is what happens when you lose large swaths of territory. You start to lose a good portion of your gem income. This is one of the main reasons. Obviously, like, economy, gold income is important, but this is one of the biggest reasons for, like, having good forts in good locations, protecting important magic sites and gem income, etc., etc. So even when you're getting raided, you still have a gem economy. And our gem economy basically consists of our capital plus one site. So that's not great. Turn 24 to only be getting, what is that, 6 gems per turn is pretty abysmal, right? And I talked about this, I think, in the actual turn 24 video, or maybe it was the turn 25 video, which means you will not have seen it yet. But the overall concept being that we may not be dead now, but we are put so far behind from an economy, both gold and gem-wise standpoint, that it's gonna take us an incredibly long time to be anything more than annoying, to someone. So that's definitely something that we need to keep in mind. Other thing we're going to report on is gem bank. So here we go. With the gem bank, last time we did a recap, we didn't have anything to compare to, right? So it was turn 1 versus turn 12. We didn't have any gems at turn 1. I guess we had one of all of the gems that we get from our capital, but aside from that, we didn't have any gems. So this is going to be a comparison, right? So this is, what did we have at turn 12, right? Versus what do we have at turn 24, basically. So I'm just going to go down the list. Fire, we went from 19 to 17. Air, we went from 4 to 3. Water, we went from 11 to 1. Earth, we went from 15 to 25. Astral, we went from 8 to 22. Death, we went from 25 to 22. And Nature, we went from 14 to 5. Now, the comparison might not actually be useful information, depending on the situation. Sometimes you want to be spending a lot of gems. Sometimes you don't want to be spending a lot of gems. In this current point in the game, a lot of our banks, right, have dipped, right? We lost a lot of water. We've lost a lot of nature. We've actually gained Earth and Astral. But that's primarily because we weren't spending those. We were spending a lot of the other things in either primarily trade is what we were going for, right? So give or take, that may or may not be useful information. But we're going to report on almost everything that we can report on, just so that people can kind of like see what's going on. So, pretty interesting stuff. I think it's kind of cool to see what's going on with all of those gems and kind of the progression of like, oh, and this year the amount of gems we had access to went from this amount to that amount. Right? But you can kind of tell via trades and rituals and things like that of, oh, we didn't get very many more air gems, but that's because we're spending our air gems basically as fast as we can get them. You know, that type of concept. So anyways, moving on, we're going to take a look at research here. Ooh, I did want to do this, so I keep forgetting to do this. I want to do score graphs as we're kind of going through this. So this should have gone with the provinces. We can see the nice incline, right? Boom, where we just crash back down to one province. Actually, technically, I think we never got down to one province. I think we always had at least two, because I don't think anyone ever took Golm, right? Also, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be in the reported events, but I'm pretty sure we got a massive PD event in Golm, because now it has a bunch of PD there. But I think that was during the gap that I lost. Heads up, I guess I should have said this at the very beginning, right? Like, so we did lose turns 18 through 22, so this information is not going to be perfect information, but I've extrapolated as best I can about as many things as I can. So there's all that situation. So yeah, anyways, that is that's going to be the gem section. So research, right? So we're jumping into research. And like last time, we're going to talk about everything that we did, right? So as everything should be popping up on screen right now, right? So we completed throughout year 2, Alteration 2, Enchantment 1, Enchantment 2, Alteration 3, Alteration 4, and Evocation 3. So nothing really major there, except for people who have already seen this, key components for us to be able to defend ourselves against Agartha, right? So for the turn, or for the year, we had or at this point in the game, rather, sorry, we have a total research of 2,086. Let me notate that real quick. And then between last year and this year, last year we had 576. This year we had 1,510 for research. So yeah, that's just kind of a comparison, right? I just kind of want to show what is going on with our research and how that is kind of leveling out. And the real honesty there is it's not going very well. So we have basically tripled our research, but only because we were locked in our fort for an extended period of time. It's not because we are making a lot more researchers. In point of fact, there was like probably half the year we weren't making any additional researchers, which is really bad. We're locked, even when we were locked into one location, our capital, right? Because we had such slow infrastructure. So this, I think, honestly, for it to be kind of a good scenario, you would want your research to be like 5 to 6 times higher in year 2 than you would want it to be in year 1. And that is not by any stretch of the imaginations like a specific number or target or anything like that. That's just my ballparking off the cuff, right? But yeah, right now we have 136 research with basically everyone researching, except for our god, I guess, which would be another 66. But that's the thing, like, our god, if he was researching, would be a third of our research right now. So that's not good. I think I talked about this very, very early on in the game, right? That because we have an awake researcher or awake a rainbow pretender that is doing research for us, our initial turns of research, probably turns 1 through 5 or 6, we were probably one of the top researchers in the game. But after that point, it's just plateau, right? Because everyone else continuing to recruit new researchers, right? We have Drain 3, so our researchers don't recruit as well, or they're not as useful when we recruit them, is what I mean. And then everyone else who has infrastructure continuing to recruit in multiple locations, that starts to scale higher and higher and higher and curve further and further up, right? Whereas we're just kind of going like this. So, very stagnant line. Even though we have almost tripled our research, it's not good. Is very, very bad. So, there's that. We did hit a couple of important research things, though, specifically in Alteration, the Temper Flesh and Iron Skin combos, right? And then Moss Body added on top of that. That has been a lifesaver. And now we're kind of like running up the evocation tree. We grabbed some enchantment just to be able to dabble in some things. And yeah. So this is not correct information. I need to edit this real quick. That should have been enchantment 2 and enchantment 3, not enchantment 1. I'm pretty sure we did enchantment 1 in year 1. Although maybe we didn't. Maybe we did enchantment 1, 2, and 3. I will go look. I'll go look at I still have the notes from year 1, so I'll go look and I'll edit that. And the information over here will probably be correct, and what I said will probably be incorrect. But whatever. It is what it is. Let's move on, shall we, and talk about how recruitment went for the year. So recruitment was actually, much like the rest of the stuff, pretty light, right? Pretty early on in the year, at turn 15, we had a pretty bad loss, and after that point, we very rapidly ran out of money, and we very rapidly ran out of the ability to recruit, right? So, recruitment-wise, we're going to have very few things to report comparatively to year 1. But for commanders, right, we have 3 Apu, 2 Scouts, 2 Huron Priests, 1 Cynocephalian, I can never remember how to pronounce that, Chieftains, right, and 1 Karaka. And these are listed in just order of how the most we recruited to least we recruited. Right, and then same thing for units, right? So here are our units. We had 14 Alcac Spearmen, 13 Sun Guard, 9 Cynocephalian Hunters, 8 Condor Warriors, 5 Heavy Infantry, 5 Jaguar Slingers, 4 Archers, and 2 Alcac Axemen. And that's kind of all over the place on what we're recruiting and why we're recruiting it, right? Because the stuff that we were recruiting and the reasons we were recruiting them for at the start of this year, in turn 13, were very different than what we were trying to recruit or what we even had the ability to recruit in the middle of the year and the end of the year, right? So the concept being, at the start of the year, we were trying to grab extra combat ability via things like the Sino Hunters and the Heavy Infantry. We were thinking maybe we might want to try a Flaming Arrows play against someone, so we were starting to grab Slingers and Archers. And then the battle against Ashdod happened, and all of that kind of went away. It was just like, okay, well, the only thing that's going to do anything is Sun Guard. So grab as many Sun Guard as we possibly can, supplement with Axemen where we need to, and that's it, right? That's the best we can hope for. And that's pretty much it. And then as far as like the commanders go, that was literally just down to we're trying to get some Huron priests, and then we have no money, guess we'll just grab some stuff whenever we can type situations. So there's that. Moving from regular recruitment over to Nazcan special recruitment, right? So in the Nazcan recruitment scenario, this is where we talk about all of the things like all of the special Hatan Runa capturing, Supaya reanimating, reanimating Long Dead and stuff like that, which we haven't been doing yet. Specific Nazcan summoning rituals, but also mummifications, right? Because I think it's interesting to note when we're getting mummifications, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I lost these mages. And with Nazca, it's not quite, oh, I lost these mages. It's, oh, these mages died, and now I have their mummified versions. So that's a pretty interesting thing to report, I think. So, jumping into each one of these, right, first off, we have Malquis, right? We have 2 mummified Malquis. Both of these come from, one of them comes from the Ashdod conflict, and then one of them comes from the Agarthan conflict that follows. We have 1 Royal Malquis, right? So that's interesting. Our first actual Royal Malquis, not a recruited one, but one that died on the field of battle, and that was the Inca that led the battle against Ashdod. So hopefully we don't have many more of those, but a Royal Malquis is useful for us, so fingers crossed, we'll see what we can do with that. And then that's all we had as far as mummifications go, thankfully. I'm feeling, right? Hatan Runa, we had 117 captured. And that is less than last year. I think last year was somewhere around the 135 mark or something like that. And the reason why it's less is because we were locked in our capital for a very long time, right? And couldn't actually capture Hatan Runa. I think actually the majority of these 117 happened in turn 13 and 14 and 15. And then turns... No, actually, I don't think we've... I think in turn 24, we're just now starting to be able to recapture. So I think our 117 captured comes from like 4-ish turns or so, which is, pretty nice if it had availed us anything, but it didn't. Next up, we have Supayas that, let me put this real quick. We have Supayas, which we had 12 reanimated this year, and that is about half as many as we would want, specifically because we're getting 2 per turn, and if we have our prophet reanimating 2 every turn, then we would expect to get 24 at least from that prophet. Much less, we would prefer to have some other Royal Malquis and things like that actually be doing that reanimating as well. And of course, the issue there is once we got locked into our capital, we could no longer reanimate Supayas because you can't reanimate, you can't do most special recruitment like that if you are under siege, right? So no going down into the catacombs below the capital or the graveyards of the capital or anything like that and reanimating Supayas. Nope. You gotta be able to go outside the walls for that stuff, which I think is actually perfectly fair. I'm not bitching. I'm just like making amusing comments. So our Supaya reanimation was unfortunately quite a bit less than we would want it to be, but 12 Supayas is still nice. And then the only other thing to report in this section is Nazca summoning rituals. So I guess this is a slightly different section. But this is where we report all of the condors, huacas, supayas that are specifically from that style of reanimation. This year we had 2 summon condors for a total of 30 condors. So that's not great, but not the worst in the world. No, it was pretty bad, honestly. So we had 2 summon condors in year 1, right? And that was fine at that point. We would have expected, right, to scale our air income. And in point of fact, that was actually one of the only things that we did find before we lost all of our land, was we had found 1 more air income. If we'd found like another 2 or 3 air income, right, we would be getting to the point to where we're summoning condors every other turn, etc., etc., that type of situation. So that's a pretty big negative, to not be able to summon condors more consistently, at least in the early game, right? Like in the mid to late game, you probably want to use your air gems for other things. But in the early game with Nazca, being able to shit out 15 condors for 9 air gems is a really big thing. So the fact that, you know, it's just like our economy or our infrastructure or our gem income, everything else, because of that, we have not been able to grow in power the way that we would want to. So pretty unfortunate. So that was Nazcan recruitment. In the future, we're probably going to have special recruitment or things like that. Oh, shit. Did I not have it here? No, I should have it here. Yeah. Un momento. Let me add this to our list. So, I'm going to split this up, because in the future, we might have more things. And it occurred to me when we were doing wolves, right? I don't really want to put the wolves in regular recruitment. I don't really want to put the wolves in Nazcan recruitment, right? So we're going to have a site or special recruitment. So site-specific or special, unit-specific recruitments, like vampires spawning vampires or thralls or things like that, right? That type of stuff is all special recruitment, I think. And this year has been relatively low. We got 6 wolves, right? So not really much of a thing, but it is what it is. No big deal. Let me notate this real quick. Sorry, I had to add that, so I'm a little off. Gotta make some adjustments. Okay, and that brings us to some of the big stuff here. Which is battles for year 1. So, battles for year 1. This is going to be this section. I'm gonna try to. I'm not sure which ones I'm gonna add yet. I'm pretty sure I know which 2 I'm gonna add, but I'm gonna go through the battles and we'll just total them out and maybe talk about a couple of them, and then probably what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a plug in a. What's my, I'm blanking on my words here. A no commentary run of my biggest loss and my biggest win. So I'm pretty sure I know which ones those are going to be this year, but if we make it to another year, could be some interesting stuff there. So let's just go down the list. War versus Indies. So we had 4 wins, 0 losses, and 2 pings. So pretty okay. War versus Ashdod. Actually, in a momento, I want to do each of these individually. So the War versus Indies was pretty simple. That was just us finishing up expansion. So nothing crazy there. The pings that we had were thrones, right? So again, nothing crazy. Pretty interesting stuff. Simple, easy peasy, right? War versus Ashdod. This is where things got interesting, right? Like starting on turn 15, I believe, we tried to alpha Ashdod as the coalition fired, and Ashdod came in against us. We lost that battle pretty horrendously, but The lucky thing was that we did kill Ashdod leadership and slow down the invasion force, basically. So, War versus Ashdod was 1 win, 4 losses, and 0 pings. Next up, we had the War versus Vanheim, right? So, in response to Ashdod, to that battle specifically, the very next turn, Vanheim hit us in 3 places. And that was it, right? Like, Vanheim did not press us further than that. So 0 wins, 3 losses, and 0 pings against Vanheim. And I've had plenty of decent conversations with Vanheim. They basically said, hey, saw that battle, or Ashdod shared that battle report, right? And can't let my potential new neighbors take everything, so I'm taking some stuff. And that's it. They took a couple provinces and they left it at that. And then they got into a war with Ashdod. So, yay! Next up, we have War versus Yis, right? And this was not really War versus Yis, but again, this was that scenario of, hey, I have a friendly neighbor. Hey, I'm getting eaten. I might as well end the nap with that friendly neighbor and say, hey, come take my land. So 0 wins, 2 losses, and 0 pings against Yis. And then we had the majority of the battles, and that is the War versus Agartha. So, War versus Agartha, we had 2 wins, 7 losses, and I think 3 pings. This is kind of difficult to gauge because I'm not 100% sure, because that comes in the lost turns 18 through 22 section. But I was consistently pinging Agartha on my capital to try to make sure I knew exactly what he had, in case I could try to counter any specific things, right? Not that I had a whole lot of options, but, you know, I was trying to keep that in mind. So anyways, that is the war scenario for the turn. We did a decent job finishing up some indies, and then we did just get annihilated by Ashdod and Agartha and Vanheim, and it was pretty rough. So, why don't we start this little section by showing the horrendous, this is our biggest loss of the year, versus Ashdod. Okay, so that was pretty bad. And it set off the motion of our horrendous downfall as Vanheim and Agartha came in immediately afterwards. But after that, right? Because of the way in which we lost that battle with Ashdod, that slowed down Ashdod's ability to come at us, to invade us. They had to pick up their troops. They had to ferry around leadership, and then they had to come back into our lands. And because of that, that gave Vanheim, I think, negotiating power basically, and Agartha impetus to go for our capital. So what that ended up doing was making Van and Ashdod fight, and Agartha be the one who sat on our capital, giving us time to research, to trade, and that all led to our biggest win of the year, which is this. I've watched that battle a whole bunch of times. It's a very simple battle. Honestly, the truth be told, there is not a lot of crazy. That is not like, oh ho, I'm so clever. I can't believe I did that. Right? Like, there's no crazy mechanics going on in there. There's nothing like that is not a Phoenix Pyre Golem coming out of nowhere to just destroy you. That's not an enlarged gelatinous cube eating your, like swallowing your super combatant or your thug or whatever. That's not that's a very simple tactic, right? We just layered some simple defenses, right? We had armor. We increased our armor through natural protection. We reduced the damage that we could take from resistances, temper flesh, right? Then we added on a cap with Moss Body. We decreased the opportunities for us to take damage via Body Ethereal and Astral Shield. And then we relied on our Chill Aura to fatigue people around us while relying on the enemy's Heat Aura to burn people around them. So I say all of that. It's a lot of layered scenarios, but it wasn't lucky, right? Accepting that it was Agartha who we went up against. And it was honestly probably Agartha's battle to lose on that one. I mean, I say honestly, it absolutely was Agartha's battle to lose on that one. Them not bringing anything like Mind Blasters, right? Or more Shard Guard, right? Or I don't know, even like simplified thugs with potential like anti-thugging gear, is honestly a big mistake, right? That was Agartha's battle to lose, and they lost it, big time. And we'll have to see in the coming year what that actually means for them. But anyways, so that is the battle section. I think it's a very, very interesting year for us. Obviously, we have just been shat upon for the most part. But it's nice to culminate the year in somewhat of a win. So there's that, right? Next up, we have the events section. So boom, events, right? Let's talk through these real quick. And I think I said this in year one, but it might get difficult to report on every single event in a really kind of like under a tangible way, a way that makes sense, especially when we start to get events where we've got layers of different things. And some of that is going to come through in this one, but I'm going to fortunately, because we had such a decrease in landmass, we had a pretty decent decrease in events compared to what we probably would have had otherwise, right? So this year we get to again have kind of like a bit of a pass. So we're just going to report on things, and if we make it to year 3, fingers crossed, maybe we'll have to change things on how we're reporting. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, negative events, right? So negative events this year, we didn't have anything just massively horrendous, but there were a couple of pretty annoying things. In total, we lost 107 gold. We had multiple unrest events in Nazca, so we had a plus 35 unrest event in Nazca and a plus 18 unrest event in Nazca. Both of these were prior, or like immediately after the battle with Ashdod. I don't think that they were ritual based, but it is possible, but I don't know what it would have been, so I don't think it was. We also had a loss of population in Nazca for 1,480. So that combined amount of unrest and loss in population, especially considering we don't have growth, right, actually hurt. We lost a lot of income from our capital in those successive turns. And that's bad because it's the vast majority of our income to begin with, right? So really, really unfortunate. And then in Cloudbreaker, we had a minus Dominion event, which is kind of whatever. I don't think that we particularly care too terribly much about our Dominion and our Dominion push, because we don't have very good Dominion. The only thing we're really interested in with our Dominion is getting luck everywhere to try to have better events fire, right? And then as far as positive events go, right, this is actually a fair amount of stuff, but again, most of this is just gem income. So anyways, fire 2, air 7, water 2, earth 6, astral 2, death 2, and nature 3 as far as random gem income. That's always appreciated, very nice. And honestly, it's really one of the biggest things that you're getting out of going luck 3. Note, we didn't get gold this turn, so that's kind of unfortunate. I am trying to, I think, gonna separate gold losses reports and gold gain report. I'm not gonna try to balance them out and then just report on what did we get for the most, right? Because there's a difference. Anyways, we also got some miscellaneous stuff. We got Lightless Lantern, cool. Mark, the province, got income plus 20, which is great, right? Getting province income increases is fantastic. Getting a plus 20 is very, very good. The only problem is yeah, we don't own Mark anymore. So, you know, yeah, it is what it is. And then I think the big thing happened just last turn, I believe. Or it might have been this turn. Was it this turn? Yeah, it was this turn. So, Pachacuti, the Incan Chapak. I don't know how to pronounce these words. I apologize. But this is really, really cool. Very excited to get this guy. Really one of the coolest heroes, I think, in the game. Very, very neat. Like him a lot. So there's that. And that is pretty much it for the events this turn. So 3 negative and 6 positive events in total, which is kind of unfortunate, but probably mostly due to the fact that we just had far less provinces overall, right? We were seeing towards the end of year 1 our positive events begin to outscale our negative events greatly. But then we started to lose territory, and it's just a lot harder to get more and more and more events if you're going to have less territory. So it is what it is. Next up, we have some rituals. So again, if we survive for very long, we might have longer lists of this, but right now we just don't have a lot of ritual casting going on, aside from things like summoning condors. So this is going to be rituals that are not Nazcan specific. Or I say that there are other Nazcan rituals that we might end up using, like Eyes of the Condor. I don't think we'll ever do the geoglyphs or whatever, because that would mean we'd have to, like, I don't know, invade Ashdod territory or something like that, which seems unlikely. I guess if we took Ashdod's capital, we could put a geoglyph in Ashdod's capital. That would be fucking unlikely, is what that would be. So, all we have for this turn is, or for this year, is some summoning. We did 1 Revive Whites. And I considered doing a lot more, but we were reviving, when we did the Revive Whites, it was against the concept of, if we have to fight Ashdod, whites are probably going to be one of the best things that we can do, one of the best things that we can dump our death gems into, right? But when we found out, when we realized, hey, we're going to be fighting Agartha, I was like, okay, hold up, slow your roll. Don't dump all of your gems into random summons that are not going to be great for you in the long run, because we very well can beat Agartha with a very specific thing. So that's what we did, right? So worked out. Okay, next up we've got trade. And this is going to be quite a bit more information than we had in year one, because we've done quite a bit more trading than we did in year one. But yeah, anyways, I'm just going to go down the list. So first off, we sent Yis 9 water gems. I think we got some other stuff back. I do not know what it is. I believe it happened again in the 18 to 22 block. So that's my bad. I think it was a water breathing necklace, or not a necklace, a ring of water breathing. And then I think the rest of the gems were just as kind of like, here, good luck against Pelagia, basically, right? So, whoops. And then we had Ulm. We sent Ulm 10 fire, 10 death, and 12 nature. So 32 gems in total for quite a bit of stuff. 1 bracers of protection, 1 dragon helmet, 1 main gauche, 1 black steel full plate, 1 black steel shield, 1 boots of giant strength, and 3 rings of fire. That is, what is that? A total of 9 items. 9 items that he probably made for 1 gem apiece. So we absolutely not got ripped off, right? But we paid a premium. 32 for 9 gems is a little more than a 3-to-1 ratio. So that's not horrendous, but it's not great either. But those items were really important, right? Like the gear that we used on our god absolutely kept us from taking damage and allowed us to do what we did to Agartha. I would make that trade again in a heartbeat. And then the other trade that we did was with Arcocephale, and we traded 3 water, 7 earth, and 5 nature, for a total of 15 gems for 4 owl quills. That's just kind of an amalgamation of gems that Arco was happy with, and the owl quills were just to facilitate researching as best as we could. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the trading for the year. Hopefully we're going to have more trading in the years to come, fingers crossed, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Ulm has been extremely receptive to trading with me, so has Arcocephale. So if we have opportunity to continue to do good trades, then we will try to take those. Is what it is. And then the last thing to report on is diplomacy. So, boom. Diplomacy. Last time, I had nothing to report on in diplomacy. This time, I have some very tangible things to report on with diplomacy. And the first one is that we established a NAP 3 with Yis basically on turn 13. And I talked about this in the year 1 recap. But I talked about that it was a thing that was happening, not a thing that had happened. And we did that, and then almost immediately afterwards, like 3 turns later, we canceled and said, hey, yes, take some of our land, because it is what it is. But we are still on very friendly terms with Yes, and we'll see how things go in the next year. Yeah. And then Ulm, we have basically made an alliance with. Now, currently there is no NAP, there's no non-aggression pact, there's no formal in writing alliance or anything like that. We have put nothing to pen and paper. We have made no commitment or anything like that. But Ulm is attacking Agartha because Agartha is a good target for them, and because they're attacking Agartha with even more vigor now that I have smashed an army upon my capital, right? So we are basically allied against Agartha, and that is potentially really good news for me. Because topping it off, the rest of this is stuff that is really tangible to report, but that's what's going on around me, right? That's Yisk being occupied in the ocean, and that's Ashdod and Vanheim being occupied with one another. So I guess from a diplomacy standpoint, I have actually kind of more of a diplomatic stance with Vanheim at this point in time, right? In the immediate aftermath of what happened, I spoke to Van, and Van was like, yeah, I don't really care, right? Like, I'm taking your territory because of what happened. But I don't care about the whole Nazca situation. That doesn't bother me. And then Van got into a conflict with Ashdod, and basically at this point, I'm not really on either side, but if Van, right, like I'm more willing to facilitate Van's success against Ashdod than I am willing to facilitate Ashdod's success against Van. And that's from a pure survival standpoint, right? Like, neither of them are good opponents for me. But Ashdod has already sought to take me out, whereas Vanheim has just taken some stuff, right? So at the end of the day, if I need to back one or the other, obviously it's going to depend on the situation. And right now the situation is I'm just going to stay out of their business and hopefully not attract any attention. So that's really all we have as far as actual hardline diplomacy that goes on. I've been talking, like, again, I'm a relatively talkative-ish person. I've been talking to everyone in the game. I try to reach out every couple days or once a week or something like that just to send people messages and say, hey, how's it going? I heard about this thing. Or, hey, what's up? Do you need anything? Trade's always open, that type of stuff. And for the most part, people have been relatively receptive. Although I think the people that I have been most communicative with are the ones that I'm now kind of trading with and making alliances with. Yisk, Arcus Fale, etc. So I'm very interested in how things progress over the course of the next year. So kind of culminating all of this recap into a what the fuck is going on. I think I talked about this in turn 24 or turn 25. So if it was in turn 25, then, you know, or it might have been turn 26. I've recorded a couple turns prior to doing this recap, just because the recap takes a lot more research and gathering data and things like that than the regular turns do. So I talked about it in one of those, the concept that I'm still basically out of the game. Right? What happened last turn was really cool, right? And now we've actually knocked Agartha off of our capital. And Ulm's attacking Agartha. Great, fantastic. And Ashdod and Vanheim are attacking each other. Wonderful. It's the perfect storm political climate. Great. Nazca's gonna come roaring, but no, we're not gonna come roaring back. Dominions is a game about scaling your power curve, right? Whether your power curve as a nation is your economy, right? Like your scales economy, whether it's your gem economy, whether it's your forging, your crafting economy, right? Whether it's your free spawn economy. Dominions is a game about scaling that power curve and getting out of control, basically. And you'll see games where people, you know, like, they scale up, and everyone's kind of like in that same block, and no one quite gets out of control, and those games tend to stagnate, right? Someone ends up having to rush, or it's a very grinding long-term game, right? We are so behind on that power scaling that we might as well be at the start of year one while everyone else is at the end of year one, basically. It's not quite that extreme because we do have, you know, we have certain research goals under our belt, and we do have a base of military power. However, our chances of scaling up with research, with gem income, with actual income, because of the build that we have, because of the setbacks that we have had, is extremely unlikely, right? So I am trying to maintain, or I'm trying to manage my own expectations. We may no longer be dead, right? Because 5 turns ago we were dead, right? It was, we're gonna die, right? Like, we're going to, Agartha is going to put a foot in us, we're gonna die. And then it turned into, okay, well, actually maybe we can defend ourselves against Agartha, right? But Van or Ashdod will just kill us. So, whatever. And now that they're embroiled in this conflict, we might not be dead in the immediacy, right? We might see a year 3. I still find that unlikely. I still think that as soon as Van or Ashdod realizes what's going on with Agartha, one of them is going to go, okay, and march an army over to us and just put an end to us, and that'll be that, right? But if they don't, even if they don't, I guess is what I'm trying to say, we are not going to be able to become a threat, right? A regional threat. If things go perfectly against Agartha, Ashdod is going, or Ulm is going to take a large swath of territory, probably their capital, and I'm going to get a little bit of land back, right? If things go perfectly between Vanheim and Ashdod, then they beat the crap out of each other and they're both left weakened. But even weakened, they will both be at least my power level, if not more, right? What's more likely is for one of them to start to win and start to push the other out, and then whoever is still around is an extreme threat to me, right? So it's very likely that I make it to the end of year 3. But if I do, it's probably still going to be in a very minor capacity. So we have upgraded from dead to inconsequential, right? We may survive to be a minor power for a short amount of time. So my goal at the start of year 3, at the end of year 2, my goal now, right, is to try to upgrade that. We've upgraded from dead to inconsequential, and now I want to try to upgrade from inconsequential to annoying, right? I want to try to say, okay, well, if we're gonna be around, let's try to be an annoyance to someone. Let's try to help take out Agartha. Let's try to facilitate the death of Ashdod or Vanheim, right? Ultimately, someone's gonna come in and smack me around. Whether that's going to be Ulm eventually, or the winner between Ashdod and Vanheim, or if that's Jotunheim, right, that comes in and cleans up after the other 2 of them, or whether that's any of the 3 underwater nations that finishes things up and says, hey, I don't want a Nazca still around, right? Someone is going to come and finish the job. It's just a matter of when, right? So now the goal is go from inconsequential to an annoyance, and the route that we are gonna have to take to get there is potentially gonna be long and boring and somewhat squirrely. One of the things that we can try to do is try to make a play for one of the thrones around us that aren't captured. These 2 are either in enemy territory or taken. These 2 are open, right? So there's that possibility, but neither of these thrones are easy thrones, as we have seen in the past, right? So the immediate effort, right, the next half of year 3 is basically going to be trying to do our best against Agartha and maybe trying to take some of our old land back. And after that, we'll see what happens. So that is going to be the end of this video. That is the year recap for year 2, or the recap for turn 13 through 24. Pretty exciting stuff. I really expected to, honestly, at the start of the game, I expected to be dead by now, and it got pretty close. it got very close, but we somehow managed to make it to the end of year 2, and yeah, that's that. For watching. See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.